Hello, everyone. My name is Yu Hu. I'm the founder and CEO of Kaito. Today, I want to talk to you about the opportunity that we see in the future in terms of letting everyone be able to monetize their own content. This is what we call infinite monetization. For those of you who are not familiar with Kaito today, we are the largest creator distribution network in crypto. We have 1 million registered users, 200,000 monthly active creators, 1,000 brands and teams are working with us, more than $100 million actually distributed, and opportunities being created by us to the content creators over the last 12 months. Many of the people didn't know that we actually started as the leading data platform within crypto. So we helped more than 1,000 different teams with various different kind of data analytics. We index all the crypto data information analytics across all the various different kind of social platforms. And the reason why that is very important is because data is our backbone. And in a bit, I'm going to explain why that's the case. And roughly 12 months ago, we started our retail expansion. And that is Yaps. And some of the people might be familiar with that. It's essentially a two-sided marketplace that connect the brands and the creators. We use data and algorithm to essentially determine people's contribution retroactively and allow brands to distribute rewards to that. The significance of that is it is all data and AI powered. And why data is important in all of these is if you think about, for example, crypto Twitter is maybe something that we might be familiar with, or for example, some of the top YouTube content creators, Instagram content creators. Normally, people only know about the top creators because that's human nature. We understand these people because 99% of the content that people consume are basically coming from some of the top content creators. But actually, data and AI are very, very critical in surfacing the long tail of very, very influential, equally influential, but emerging and micro influences. Without good data, that is virtually impossible. Before Kaito, a predicate example would be some of the mid-tier KOLs and influencers would essentially never be able to kind of prove their influence to other people that this is the kind of the number of followers they have are more influential than some of the other folks. But with good data, that becomes available. And AI and data are so critical in this revolution in terms of helping the market understand the long tail end of the market. So the two things that are really significant and the fundamental reasons why this is so important. The number one is if people understand the past few years, essentially since the emergence of social media, the major trends have been in the past, narratives and stories are basically controlled by the mainstream media. But then now, everyone essentially has a voice. Increasingly, you see some of the journalists, for example, build up their personal brand and essentially go and become a YouTuber. Then that nowadays carries much more influence over some of the mainstream medias. And the same thing is increasingly the case across all the social media. People's purchasing behaviors are increasingly being influenced by other people's reviews, UGC type of content, and the ratings that people see online. If that's the world that we're headed, we firmly believe that there is a world where UGC type of content, so user-generated type of content, is going to allow everyone to be able to monetize their content. So that's the first implication. The second implication why this is all very important is data are actually becoming less open. I don't know whether you guys will realize this. In the past, if you search on Google, you can basically cover the entire internet. But nowadays, all the data that are living, for example, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the other platforms, they're rarely accessible via a search engine because every single social platform is becoming more closed off. They're becoming more closed off because data is so valuable that, for example, Grok can essentially have a huge edge in terms of indexing all the content on Twitter itself. And so then naturally, none of the social media platforms want to be talking to each other. Twitter doesn't want to talk to Instagram doesn't want to talk to YouTube, doesn't want to talk to TikTok and LinkedIn, right? So this is naturally where we're headed as the internet. And this is becoming more drastic as AI progresses, because data is so important in terms of the final output that people see through the AI transformation. So these two things are such a fundamental kind of a building blocks of where we're headed into the future. Then I think that in order for us to kind of achieve the mission of mass monetization, the future is inevitably gonna essentially require interoperable data. And then that world essentially means that people's identity and reputation can essentially be carried across all the social media. So imagine a world where today, for example, you have built up your social profile on Instagram. Now you have opened a new account on Twitter. Twitter basically doesn't know who you are, and it actually takes a lot of effort for you to essentially build up your own identity on Twitter again. But that is A, very inefficient, but also B, that essentially doesn't allow any of the, it's essentially a suboptimal solution for any of the social media as well. Because, for anyone who spent a lot of time on Twitter, we all know that nowadays, for example, reply sections and, tweets and stuff, this is the same problem versus all the other social media as well. But essentially, there's so many AI-generated content that's on social media right now. And the fundamental reason that's the case is because every social media platform incentivizes content, but at the same time, they do not talk to each other. They do not have the comprehensive data and information in terms of really knowing what the user are. And this is very critical because if that's the future that we're going to be living in, then every single social media platform is going to be flooded with AI-generated content. So this is what we are vouching for in terms of interoperable data. So in that world, if we're able to achieve interoperable data across social media and across both social and on-chain data, which is obviously on the blockchain side, then everyone's social identity can essentially have interoperability across all the social media and across both blockchain and social. This is so key because just borrowing out kind of a current experiments and some of the products that we've been launching recently, nowadays we can already tell, for example, a user is more likely to be a bot or more likely to be a human being by combining the social reputation side of things and the on-chain reputation side of things. Whether the person, for example, holds any dollar in their wallet, whether the person has a wallet that has 5 years of history, whether the person has done anything that's relevant to a particular protocol that this person has been talking about, which is very similar to how kind of in the Web2 world, if a micro-influencer is talking about the product, people also want to know whether this particular micro-influencer actually has been using the product for a long period of time. All of these would essentially become provable and also interoperable in the world that we're building towards. So in that world, all of you guys' identity across LinkedIn, for example, a lot of you guys would essentially have a built-up Web2 reputation that's already available on LinkedIn. But essentially that today, that's a kind of an isolated content that's not being kind of interoperable across all the other social media platforms. It's also not interoperable across any of the on-chain stuff because your wallet is going to be fresh. There's absolutely no, for example, reputation for a fresh wallet. But if we're able to build that, then we'll essentially be able to combine all of these signals and reputation across both on-chain and crypto. And that's the final unlock that we think are so critical in terms of allowing everyone to essentially monetize their own track record, monetize their own content, monetize their own identity, and monetize their own reputation. And that is what we're building towards. When we achieve interoperable data, we achieve infinite monetization. Stay tuned in terms of what Kaito is building towards. Thank you.